Dog Trainer podcast episode 29, where we talk about dogs, and that's about it. Welcome from your hosts, David and Josh.
Hello.
Well, so after yesterday's kerfuffle that we had in regards to the podcast, so just so everybody knows, today is Friday. Today is Friday, July 23rd. We filmed our last podcast on Thursday, July 22nd.
Yes.
So we sat here for about 20 minutes just now trying to come up with some things to talk about, see if we had anything juicy to talk about. We came up with nothing, which means that we're doing one more podcast on the old book here. Next chapter is a little long, and it looks like it's going to be a pretty good one. So we're going to start there. And as of next podcast, Mr. Dobey here says that he's going to come in with some good, juicy content to talk about.
All right. It's my homework.
That's the homework, because we got to get some fresh meat, you know?
Fresh meat.
Josh, what's new in the last 24 hours? Anything? Actually, it's been less than 24 hours.
It has been less than 24 hours.
Yeah. No, actually, this would have been more than 24 hours. Slightly over 24 hours.
It's like just barely, yeah.
Yeah. It's an afternoon podcast. It's 4 o'clock.
It is.
We have a beer.
He has a beer. He's feeling good.
I feel better. Yesterday, so for people who didn't listen to yesterday's podcast, we filmed almost an hour's worth of a podcast. We were freaking rolling, man. We were on a roll. It was sounding good. Topics were great. I felt like the charisma was out in its full form and everything. And then it got deleted somehow. Yeah. And we had to restart from the beginning. And I was not pleased.
Neither one of us.
The charisma went away a little bit.
Yeah.
We toughed through it.
We did.
But collectively, we probably talked for about 4 hours yesterday. So you heard the very end string of that 4 hours.
And
dry mouth, no water for any of it.
And we're talking about the same thing.
Same topics repeated again while forcing the enthusiasm out of it.
Yeah.
So, listen, I don't know what to say. All I know is it could have been better.
Yeah. It really took the creative flow for a second.
All right. Well, here we are. So, nothing is new. We're cruising away at the facility. Obviously, we talked in the last one about daycare changes that we're making. We have some very exciting things happening in the next about 2 weeks here as we put together some plans for that, as we get our new facility. Or I should say, I keep saying new facility, and it's confusing people thinking that we're moving. We're not moving. We have an additional...
There it is, additional
facility space that we will be using in addition to what we currently have. So, been on the phone meeting with contractors, talking about plans for that space. So, a lot of cool things coming. A lot of cool new enhancements being made.
Do you have an ETA at all? Or?
On the space, so space will be ours as of August 1st, and contractors will be working in there throughout August. So I am guessing that facility will be ready to be operating in by. Let me conservatively say mid-September.
Okay.
I'm gonna say mid-September. It will be operations out of it.
Yeah.
So my big thing was I needed that space ready by winter.
Yeah.
Dude, we can't go through another winter of a much larger operation that we're doing right now and just tripping over each other.
Exactly.
Man, we honestly, the fact that we've toughed through 4 winters now in this space, as is, with as little space as we actually have and as many people as we have in it. We have right now, we have 15 employees, I believe.
Yep.
That's a lot, And obviously not all of those work directly in the facility, but a large percentage of them do. And there are a lot of people in there at any given time.
Yeah.
And it's only 2,700 square foot, and that sounds big, but it's not.
No.
Especially
when you were doing
when you
full
add
daycare.
in customers in it and the amount of dog. I mean, figure we have 30 dogs in the building at any given time.
Yeah.
On top of 5 or 6 people, a couple customers. It gets hectic. So very excited to add an additional. I think that the new space is just over 1,900 square foot. So it's going to be almost double the size. So we are pumped.
Nice. Is it?
Pumped.
It's all single floor over there, right?
Just a single floor.
Nice.
Yeah. So excited to get cruising on that.
Yeah.
So aside from that, just freaking busy.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
So before we start getting back into this book here, just throwing it out into the ethos, we would love some fresh content to talk about. We would love some videos to react to. Send us stuff. We used to love when we would get some people sending us different articles and this and that. And we haven't asked for it a lot lately because we've had a lot of things to kind of go over. But we would love some input as far as the guidance or the direction you would like to see some of these conversations go with stuff. So if you have any ideas, please feel free to shoot us a direct message. The easiest place to send it is going to be either to Josh's Instagram at Josh Dobe Productions or to my Instagram at Davidthedogtrainer. So aside from that, we got 2 chapters we're going to be burning through today because the first one is very short. It's called Lessons from the Pack, Becoming the Pack Leader. So it's got a little Caesar-esque vibe to the name. That one's only a couple pages long. Then we're going to get into basic training for puppies. And that's the one I really wanted to get into here because I'll be honest, I don't remember this chapter when I first read this book. And I am always intrigued by reading about old training styles, right? Again, we talked about this book came out in the 90s, right? So it's a pretty old book, and obviously the training world and the styles in which we train in have evolved greatly over time, right? There are far more efficient ways to do things than how we used to, and there are some tried and true methods from the past that we still use every single day. So I'm looking to see in this how much of this stuff is still actually relevant, and if things aren't necessarily relevant in it, what things would I change throughout it? And again, that chapter, the puppy training, it's fairly long, so it's going to be fairly dense, I think. So,
all right.
You have any points, things you'd like to say to the world?
Not really. I'm excited for the book, as I always am. This is, I mean, I know it seems like
story time. We have story time together, Josh.
It is.
Did you have siblings?
Half brothers.
Okay. Did you ever, growing up, growing up, my sister and I, we would play school sometimes together. And basically what school consisted of was she would pick a book and she would read it to me, and then I would have to just write notes about the book as she read it.
Really?
Yeah, and she's only a couple years older than me, but she's a big book whiz.
Yeah.
She liked books, which I hated them at the time, which is a shocker because I love reading now.
Yeah.
But anyways, I feel like that's what this is. I'm reading this book to you.
Yeah.
It's kind of intimate, It's nice.
I think I'm telling you, man, this is the best book that we have gone through.
It's the best
since.
one. Here we are.
Here we are.
All right, chapter 14, Lessons from the Pack, Becoming Pack Leader. All right. Clear my throat. Now we can apply some basic principles of wolf pack life to the way you handle your puppy. By using certain exercises, we can mimic the natural integration of pups into a pack. Remember that puppies learn their proper place through constant contact with their mothers and the other pack members. Body language, proper physical dominance, and eye contact teach puppies the meanings of leadership and their role as followers. They are happiest when this is clear and consistent. Since every puppy needs a leader, the success of your relationship rests on your being a benevolent alpha figure to your pup. Start right away. Leadership is much easier to establish with a 12-week-old, 25-pound puppy than with a 60-pound adolescent. Right off the rip, very important information. One conversation I have with people a lot, I think Matt and I talked about this once, when he first started at Miracle and stuff, is the idea that we'll see a lot of these people get these power breed dogs, right? German Shepherd, Rottweiler, large pit bulls, and Great Danes. These big dogs that are going to be huge.
Yeah.
They're going to be strong.
Yeah.
And people just don't train them early on. They just don't do it. They think they can do it themselves for some reason. They think that they got it all under control. They think they got this unicorn puppy that's just not going to develop any issues later on. And goddamn, does that pose problems later on?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. Because seriously, half of this stuff, we've shown the videos of the Rottweiler growling and the videos we kind of talked about on the podcast and stuff like that, where people will see these issues with these large dogs. And you look at, we talked about this in the last chapter yesterday, where when the puppy challenges you with that growling or this or that, there's no solution for that other than to call their bluff and to challenge them back.
Yeah.
Right? There's no anything you're going to do that's going to avoid that situation and make it not happen.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you got to ask yourself the question of, do you want to fight that fight when the dog is young or when that dog can actually rip your face off?
Yeah.
Legitimately. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And man,
Yeah, you should probably pick
you got to get that
early.
shit under control, early on, because again, all this stuff, it's going to come up eventually in the dog's life. And if you're not prepared to address it head on right when it comes up, you're going to see problems.
Yep.
Get your large breed puppies trained.
Please.
Get them trained. We will concentrate first on physical contact. New owners often try to get pups to behave by explaining what is expected, by reasoning with them. They forget that puppies have no verbal skills, and when the pups fail to respond to spoken instructions, the owners become impatient and exasperated. Only later, through training, does a pup learn the meaning of specific words and commands. You will be as much more effective leader if you concentrate less on what you say and more on what you do. Talk to your dog less.
Yes.
That's the moral of the story. Your dog does not understand the pep talks you're giving them.
No.
Your dog does not understand the complete sentences that you are saying to them. Your dog, you know what I saw at Edgewater the other day? This is going to be the long one. All right. I was there, and I saw this guy, and he's grilling out with his family. Typical macho dude. Dad flipping the burgers.
Yeah.
Got his dog tethered to the picnic table. Dog kept getting up and barking. I was doing a lesson and stuff like that. And he's kept, "Get down. Hey, down. Hey, down." And then it got to the point where the dog obviously was not listening to him. And he walks over, he gets real close to the dog, and he said, "Listen to me. I told you to lay down."
Yeah.
You got to have the serious dad talk. Like my dad would tell me, he'd come up real close and he'd whisper and be like, "I told you not to do that.
Yeah.
You're not listening to me. You're going to get grounded later if you keep doing that."
Yeah.
Like,
The dog's just like, I don't care.
I don't know what the fuck you're saying.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
Hilarious. All right. Our first series of handling exercises focuses on teaching a puppy to be calm and relaxed when handled. Before advancing to obedience training, your pup must first be calm enough to pay attention to you. This may seem self-evident, but the majority of dogs brought to us for obedience training completely lack attentiveness. Their owners cannot get their focus. The dogs arrive unruly, dominant, and in human-dog relationships, that always spells trouble. To avoid this, you must train your pup to focus on you right from the start. Genuine leadership presumes attention, and when you get it, you will be close to becoming the alpha in your pup's life. The following exercises are designed to establish you as a leader in your puppy's eyes and can begin a week or so after you obtain him. By teaching him to be calm and to hold still while you're handling him, you will show your puppy that you are a dominant figure in the relationship and that you're a benevolent leader, worthy of trust.
Benevolent.
Benevolent. I don't even really know what that word means, honestly.
I think it's like all powerful, I think.
Is that it?
Kind of omnipotent?
I am the all-powerful leader.
I am the...
I am benevolent. Exercise 1, restraint. First. That's what happens when we do evening ones,
Yeah, I know.
Afternoon ones. First, sit down on the ground with your pup comfortably placed between your knees or legs, facing away from you. Put your hand over his chest and your left hand under his muzzle. This is a basic exercise in restraint. If he accepts this handling calmly, praise him in a soft, reassuring voice and gently massage him. If he squirms and fights to get free, hold him firmly and put him right back in position, saying in a firm voice, "No, stay." You probably don't have to say that.
Yeah.
As soon as he settles, resume massaging him, gently petting him from the top of his head down to the back of his neck. Any additional struggling can be handled in the same way. With a quick shake that's startling does not hurt him. Make sure your hold is firm, since the message you want to give your pup is one of control, with no indecision. Do this for several minutes per session. We found that most puppies come to accept this handling during the first or second session, and to see it as very pleasant. This also forms the basics for the stay command later on. So, general handling, this goes in place. One of the first things I talked about in the aggressive dog handbook that I made, I had a whole section called handling basics, right?
Yeah.
That went into actually virtually all of the things that they're talking about here right now, which the concept of it is to teach the dog to essentially remain calm while you are doing quote unquote dominant things to them, right? And I use that in quotations because whatever, you can call it dominant, you call it whatever it wants. You know, I'm not doing it because I'm trying to be dominant per se. I'm just doing it because I want the dog to realize that being restrained is a necessary part of life, because a lot of behavioral problems you'll see are when dogs are trapped and they act out because they're trapped, right?
Yeah.
Whether that's just thrashing around or biting or this or that. So if I have opportunities as the owner or as the leader or as the handler or whatever it may be to work them through that fight myself, it's going to make it way easier for other people, like at the vet or the groomer or training facility or whatever it may be, to do that all later on. So this is all very good stuff. Honestly, that no state, you don't even need that, because here, if you look at what the reinforcement actually is behind these things, the reinforcement is when they fight, we tense up. When they loosen up, we loosen up, right? So we're using negative reinforcement to teach this. We're removing pressure when the dog does the correct thing, right? So technically, your words are virtually meaningless in that situation. You don't need them.
Yeah,
you
I was
know?
going to say that.
Were you?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. That didn't seem like it actually fit there anyway.
Yeah, when we're doing nails, you know, we hold the paw, we wait till they stop fighting, and then when they stop fighting, we loosen up. Right? That is the reinforcement. That is the good job, you know?
Yeah.
All right, exercise 2. Examining mouth and ears. When you are able to restrain your pup in a calm, relaxed manner, move on to the second exercise, which includes examining his mouth and ears. Throughout his life, it will be necessary at times to give your pup medicine. Take inappropriate objects from his mouth, clean his ears, and check his teeth. Puppies who are not sensitized to this when they are young can grow very defensive about being examined when they are older and may even bite. To prevent this from happening, you need to familiarize your puppy with examinations now while he's still easy to handle. Begin by practicing the calming exercise we have described. Allow your pup to relax his head in your hand as you massage him, and then gently begin wrapping your dominant hand around his muzzle from underneath, gradually getting him used to the sensation. This may take a little time. There is no need to rush things. Be gentle, and when he accepts the hold, praise him encouragingly as you manipulate his head from side to side. If he becomes restless, go right back to the calming exercise to settle him. Once he allows you to hold his muzzle and move his head around in a calm and relaxed way, you're ready to open his mouth and take a quick look inside. To do this, put your dominant hand under his muzzle and your other hand over it and lift his lip briefly. Praise and pet him. Then to open his mouth fully, place the finger of each hand beneath his jaws and carefully pull them apart. Take a quick peek and then release, giving him plenty of praise. Be brief at first, since your pup will not be used to this maneuver and may initially dislike it. After several episodes, however, he will accept it without protest. If you find your pup tries to mouth or nip at your hand, clasp his muzzle lightly and give him a swift shake, accompanying this with a firm no. Open your palm for him to lick, and if he does so, praise him cheerfully. This exercise is particularly useful for gaining control over your pup's mouth and inhibiting the oral, nippy behavior common in puppies. With your pup still relaxed, begin to examine the ears, first by massaging around the base with your fingers, then working over the surface of the ears themselves. This conditions your pup to having his ears touched and is invaluable for grooming sessions. Puppies should have their ears thoroughly cleaned once a week to prevent infections. Inspections.
Yeah. That's what these are things that people need to do.
People do need to do these things. It's funny you say that, because I think I heard you say that about 20 minutes ago.
I did, I think.
We almost just lost more of our podcast, everybody.
Yeah.
I will be buying a new computer after this podcast.
I love that you were like waiting for me to say it again.
Yeah, right? I was like, oh, I remember you said something right there. I don't remember what I said back to it.
Yeah.
Yes, everybody needs to work on these things. Examining mouth and ears, examining tail, paws, all those types of things. All of this kind of stuff is very, very important for young dogs, especially with a young dog, because if they learn to be manipulated, then you're going to run less of a risk of these puppies showing these behavioral issues later on. Again, I think I was starting to say that we'll see dogs all the time that will develop aggression issues over handling. And it's because as a young age, they learn that when they're restrained in any way, shape, or form, whether it's to groom them, whether it's to check them, whether it's to train them, whatever it may be, that if they thrash and freak out and throw a fit, we will stop, right? And by having exercises specifically to work on these things, even though these are things you're going to be doing with them when you go to the ear and they get an ear infection, or you go to the vet, they get an ear infection, or you need to clip their nails or whatever it may be, by having drills to work on this, you're going into it expecting the dog to freak out, and you're being prepared to address those things as it happens. Yeah. And that's the key with working on it in sessions like this. And that goes into any behavioral issue with your dog. I always tell everybody, simulate it as a drill. If they're getting into the trash can, make a drill out of it. If they're jumping on people when they come in the door, make a drill out of it. Don't wait for real life situations to address these problems. Set up scenarios so you could address them so that you're more prepared for when they happen organically then.
Mm-hmm. Be that guy that the vet brags about.
Yeah, seriously. All right, exercise 3, full body massage and repositioning. The third handling exercise, a logical extension of the previous two, involves examining your puppy's whole body and moving him safely when he is in a reclining position. This is a valuable skill to have if your dog is injured or if you need to move him while he is resting. We know of a number of biting incidences that occur when owners tried to get his dog to move while the dog was sleeping. Conditioning your puppy ahead of time is a sensible way to prevent such accidents. Start in the relaxed position of exercise 1 to make your pup lie down, grasp both front legs, and move them out from under him, gently taking him into the down position as you praise him. Move your hands around his neck and back, massaging him in a soothing manner, making sure he is totally relaxed before proceeding any further. When you sense he is completely at ease, kneel beside him, roll him over so he's lying on his side, and continue with your massage. Talk him in a calm, reassuring way. If he starts to struggle, push firmly against his shoulder and say, "No, stay." Don't say that. You don't need to.
Yeah.
Pushing on his shoulder, another form of negative reinforcement. Apply pressure, dog gets in the down, release pressure. Apply pressure, dog gets in the down, release pressure. This goes back to, again, nonverbal communication, understanding the quadrants of learning. You learn how to work through these things. Now listen, stay and no and repeating like no sit, no this, no that, right? Those are all old school, like we were talking about at the beginning, methods of dog training. They're things that have been done forever, so I'm not holding this against them by any means because everybody was doing that kind of stuff, but you start to realize later on how unnecessary some of it is. The concept and the drill is accurate, just forget some of the verbal stuff.
Yeah.
Then follow immediately with praise when he settles. At most, your correction should be a quick, gentle pin by the scruff, enough to let him know that you're in control. Continue lightly massaging his entire body with your fingers, paying particular attention to the feet and tail areas, which will help accustom your pup to having his nails clipped and temperature taken. Use eye contact to reinforce the connection with your pup, giving a firm glance when he is restless and a kind, affectionate look when he is relaxed and accepting. While he's comfortable, grab both sets of paws and calmly roll him over, continuing to stroke and pet him, then roll him back, praising him as you make eye contact. Finally, slide him around as if you were moving him out of the way. Conclude the session with an okay and his name plus plenty of praise. We have long known the benefits of canine body massage and described our approach to it at length and how to be your dog's best friend. Massage is a valuable bonding technique that helps both owner and dog relax in each other's presence. Aside from using it as a relationship-enhancing exercise with older dogs, we also introduce it here as preliminary training exercise with young puppies to develop their sense of trust and confidence in a human leader. A puppy who allows you to examine, handle, and manipulate and groom him is one who trusts you and accepts you as leader. He acknowledges your dominance as he experiences your kindness and becomes comfortable with giving you attentive, responsive eye contact.
Just got to hydrate the pipes.
Hydrate the pipes. So this last section, I do think is very important. And I will say that I work on a variation of this, particularly with dogs with aggression issues, going back to handling basics and stuff. I used to do a drill where I don't want to use the term alpha roll because it's it's another word that's kind of got a bad meaning to it, obviously.
Yeah, stigma to it.
But it kind of is what it is, right?
Yeah.
It is what it is from the standpoint of you are getting the dog to put themselves into a very submissive position through your guidance, right?
Yeah.
Through your guidance, you are teaching them to comply and submit to you, right? And it's a variation of handling, right? So usually the way that I do it is not necessarily in the way that like Caesar teaches or all these other people where you're just using your body language to get them to roll over and stuff like that, or you're like fucking suplexing them into like into the position or something like that, right?
Yeah,
We're not doing the people's elbow or anything like that.
Manhandling them.
Yeah. It's much more of a gentle pressure and release exercise that I work on, where I start with getting the dog into a sit position with pressure and release. Again, negative reinforcement, pressure on the butt, release pressure when they sit. Then I get them into a down, utilizing pressure typically on the top of the head or on the back of the shoulders. Again, pressure, release when they give way to it, right?
Yeah.
Then I do the same thing on the side of the shoulder until I can get them to kind of kick over onto the side, right? And again, it has less to do with putting them into a submissive position, and it has more to do with them accepting pressure and release and understanding my physical touch as a communication, in addition to things like the leash or the e-collar or any other pressure and release exercises we would work on. But I try to avoid using like an alpha roll concept for it. Now, I will say that, again, it's an exercise that would be very beneficial with puppies to teach them at a young age. But as these dogs get older and some of the more aggressive dogs that I work with, you run a lot higher of a risk of them trying to bite, and a lot of those exercises are done on muzzle, right? But that's an important part of working them through the handling related issues they have with new people, where they typically would act out aggressively.
Yeah.
These preliminary exercises are invaluable foundations to the training process. They can be started shortly after you obtain your puppy and can continue on indefinitely, since they will become mutually relaxing exercises that both of you look forward to. They communicate dominance and leadership to your pup in a relaxed, non-traumatic way, and establish a level of trust that will make formal obedience a smoother process than you ever dreamed. One last observation. These exercises are suitable for most puppies. Occasionally, a puppy will be unusually touch-sensitive and may react poorly to the training. If this should happen and you experience extreme reactions of trauma, biting, and/or agitation, stop and seek the advice of a trained professional. Such a pup may require special types of handling that go beyond the scope of this book. And I'm sure they're saying that because inevitably they've ran into, just as I've ran into, puppies 8 weeks old, 10 weeks old, 12 weeks old, that you could tell are going to be a struggle later on.
Yeah.
You know, they already at a young age will act out very aggressively. You'll get some serious bite attempts. You really get tagged pretty good by some of these young guys, and you want to be careful with those types of guys.
But as much as you can do younger will hopefully make when they're older easier, right?
Big time, yeah. I mean, if you have a dog like that, I mean, you obviously will need professional help with it, but you can mitigate those issues before it becomes real bad later on. And that goes back to what we were talking about yesterday, which is having realistic expectations for the dog.
Yeah.
You know, some of these dogs that have such bad genetic issues that even at an 8-week-old, 10-week-old, 12-week-old age are displaying issues like this, they're never going to become perfect. And you need to accept that at that early age so that you could build on it later on and make it better. All right. Chapter 15. Basic training for puppies.
I'm excited to see how much you might differ from this, or maybe you agree with.
We'll see. Retreatants at New Skeet often comment on how impressed they are with the behavior of our dogs and the gentle and friendly way in which the dogs receive them. Since we include our shepherds in as many daily activities as possible, they are a highly visible part of our life, and guests encounter them frequently throughout the day. Such contact makes it imperative for the dogs to be easygoing and obedient, totally lacking in aggressive outbursts or skittish, freaky behavior. The best way to develop this behavior soundness is to start early on by constantly exposing the dogs to everyday situations in a controlled manner using basic training. A typical example. At dinner, there are often a half-dozen dogs calmly on downstays around the dining room table, not begging for food, but simply happy to be there. During the meal, they are either watch quietly or fall asleep, and often people forget they are there. If occasionally one dog should break her downstay when her guardian gets up to collect dishes or serve food, the monk quietly corrects her and puts her back in her original stay position. Rarely is anything more required. In this type of atmosphere, even a young pup can learn to stay for an entire meal, initially to prevent her from wandering around. A pup's guardian simply keeps her on a leash next to him, with one foot on the lead. If the puppy tries to get up during the meal, the monk corrects her gently by pushing her down with a quick no. Experience this consistently over a period of several days, and seeing the example of the older dogs, most pups quickly learn to relax and not fight the tether. Then, in the following months, the puppies can gradually learn the downstay away from the table. At the conclusion of the meal, the dogs wait for grace to be sung in an okay that releases them for their downstays before they walk over to their guardians. Each monk typically responds with an affectionate pat on the head and some soft, reassuring praise. Apparently, guests see something remarkable in all this. On a recent occasion, a retreatant marked Brothers, how do you get them to do that? What's your secret? I have only one dog, and Max would never be able to lie still for an entire meal. I'm amazed. Dinner time, one of the best opportunities to work on these things. So this is where you start getting into utilizing training to pattern in what it is that you actually want out of your dog. Mealtime, cooking time, things like that are one of the most common places I recommend people use these commands with their dogs. I use the example of the last 2 Thanksgivings. We went back to Connecticut with 2 of our dogs, Deli and Vera, we took. And while we had Thanksgiving dinner last year, they were probably in a bed stay for roughly 3 hours long. Didn't get up, didn't move, had new guests they had never met before, a lot of people moving around the house, things like that. And because we gave direction and had training, we were able to have them out in an active part of things. And then when things settled down, we were able to release them and have them be an active part of things as well. And that's all because of the training that we have established with them. So we're able to integrate them into more parts of our life. We don't have to put them in another room or put them in a crate or things like that, because we can give direction and we can coach them through this stuff in the way that we need them to be. An overview of puppy training at New Skeet. There's no secret about how our dogs are able to stay so relaxed during the meals and often community functions. Quite simply, we train them steadily and progressively. Since monasteries are by nature quiet, reflective spots, the chaos brought on by an unruly pack of dogs would be completely out of place. For a group of dogs to fit into this environment, they must be properly trained. This process is most successful when it begins early, as soon as a puppy starts living at the monastery. An 8-week-old pup has had little chance to develop bad habits. Initially, besides house training and preliminary handling procedures, we begin a gentle introduction to some basic exercises. Sit, stay, come, let's go, the precursor to heel, and let's see how long this will let me record real quick before it crashes out. Is it still working? We're having big time issues with this right now. Our software is just not functioning very well. It's probably going to cut out on me again in a moment or so here. Or maybe it won't. Maybe it just needs to buffer. I don't know. I don't understand what's happening here right now, but it's driving me bonkers. We're trying to keep some consistent podcast action out to you guys here, but unfortunately, due to our software technical difficulty, look, it's like this was the longest it's started working in a long time right now. We're trying to burn through this chapter for you guys. We're trying to keep it working. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to read as much as I can of this last chapter here. We're going to finish it out. And then we're probably going to have to end it again and start again fresh next time. So here we go. I think where I left off here right now was initially, besides house training and the preliminary handling procedures, we begin a gentle introduction to some basic obedience exercises. Sit, stay, come, let's go, the precursor to heel, and down. The training gradually becomes more structured and challenging as the months go on. When we start working with a pup, we keep the 2 to 3 daily sessions very brief, under 5 minutes each. The tone of the lesson is initially relaxed and pleasant. There's no fixed timetable for the puppy to succeed. No pressure on the pup to get everything right all at once. We also take advantage of repeating natural training opportunities that come up in daily life, such as sitting before the door or holding a stay before feeding, which can be done in as little as 30 seconds. Our goal is to introduce each exercise in as simple and as natural a way as possible. To avoid unnecessary stress, we begin with non-compulsive methods that condition the pups to respond correctly to commands. For example, in addition to using an aforementioned food dish exercise to accomplish a sit, we also randomly raise our fingers from the pup's eye level to above her head to create the same effect. Or we pass the pup's favorite toy from eye level to the ground to get her to follow willingly into a down. Repeating these exercises often while rewarding the correct behavior with reassurance, praise, quickly puts the pup at ease with moving into these positions, making it relatively simple for her to learn the more structured commands later on. During each session, we keep our gestures animated and lively to maintain the pup's interest, and we break up the various exercises with short moments of eye contact. We always conclude training with a short play session that is fun for the puppy. I'm shocked that I was able to read that much. We're having big-time technical difficulties, guys. I don't know what's going on. We'll get it fixed before the next one, I promise. We'll have a full week between today and the next podcast to resolve issues. All right, guys. So basically what we're getting at in this chapter here is we are creating muscle memory with these puppies.
Yes.
right? We are establishing muscle memory of getting into these positions. Early on, the reason why, okay, so a lot of people try to take their puppies, I really hope it lets me get through this point. A lot of people try to take their puppies through like Petco training classes or this or that or whatever. And I always say, listen, they're fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with going to these puppy training classes with your dog and starting to shape the basis of the training foundation that we want, right? The problem is when people look at that as training from the sense of like real life training, right?
Yeah.
Because with puppy training, you're essentially doing glorified trick training. You're establishing muscle memory of the positions, but absolutely nothing you're doing in that is going to benefit you in the real world from the standpoint of actually enforcing those commands in the real world, right? No different than here. You could use a toy to shape your downs and your sits. You could use a treat to do so. You could use physically putting the dog into those positions. You could use a leash. You could use whatever you want. All we want to do is we want to make sure we could physically get the dog to get into these positions so they could start to establish that muscle memory of what it feels like. That's kind of what they're getting at here.
Gotcha.
Over the course of a month, these daily sessions prepare the puppy for more disciplined training as she enters the juvenile stage, the phase when she starts testing her wings. By now, the pup will be comfortable with the lead and will respond positively to quick, attentive, getting leash checks that can gradually allow the training session to become more structured and challenging. Though we are careful to keep the training enjoyable and the pup highly motivated, we leave no room for doubt as to who the alpha figure is. If a correction must be made, it is done swiftly with just enough force as is necessary to change the behavior. Then we immediately reinforce the correct behavior with sincere praise. Eventually, through brief 10-minute training sessions, we work on each of the obedience exercises. By quickly shifting from one exercise to another, we maintain the pup's attention and avoid boredom. The chief malady of all obedience training. Again, we cannot overemphasize the fact that if the puppy displays a growing understanding of each exercise, we use it repeatedly in practical situations throughout the day. Down stays in the living and dining rooms, sit stays to greet guests, long down stays at night in the bedroom, and so on. Training needs this practical focus. In turn, it enables the pup to spend greater blocks of time with the monk who is caring for her. When puppy training is combined with proper management, daily exercise, frequent socializing, balanced diet, and regular grooming, it allows the pup to fit smoothly into the life of our community. The easiest way to lose enthusiasm for a puppy would be to fail to provide her with the practical skills necessary to mature into a friend and companion. If a puppy is not taught how to behave in a calm, relaxed manner, she inevitably becomes an energy drain and a burden, and it is likely that her guardian will end up spending less and less time with her. The real point of obedience training is to allow the young dog an optimal amount of inclusion in her guardian's life. With the pup being calm and under control, pups are always happiest when they are with those who have the responsibility of caring for them. That is the secret of how we raise and train our puppies. Following this program, our 6-month-old puppies are well socialized, have a solid foundation in the basic obedience exercises, and perform these tasks happily and reliably in everyday life. What's more, there is nothing extraordinary or exceptional about this. I think something you get into with all this kind of stuff is the idea that our whole goal through every bit of training that we do is not to get the dog doing all sorts of crazy things and have flashy stuff to show off and make them be the coolest looking dog at the park.
Yeah.
The point of all of this kind of stuff is to make it so that we can incorporate our dogs into any part of our day-to-day that we want to.
Yeah.
I was doing a lesson today with a fantastic older couple, bringing this kind of young puppy corgi in for training we've been working with. And this dog has just excelled, man. We were talking about the e-collar, talking about this, we were talking about that. And the lady was bringing up, she was like, they were just on vacation in South Carolina, something like that. Yeah. She was like, yeah, we were on the beach and we saw a decent amount of dogs out there, all with their e-collars on. You know, a bunch of them had e-collars on out there.
Okay.
And she was like, you know, it was really cool to see all these dogs wearing these e-collars and seeing all of the different things that they were doing, you know, where, you know, she was like, back in the day, you know, like we never would have seen a lot of that kind of stuff because the dogs wouldn't have been under control enough. And I told her, I was like, yeah. And it's shocking to me that we'll still see such a strong push against some of the tools we use, right? There's all this stigma against, you know, and I understand why people don't like e-collars. I really do, right? I understand that nobody wants to hurt dogs. Nobody wants to be quote unquote shocking dogs and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. But when you look at some of these dogs and you look at some of the freedoms that they're able to experience in their day-to-day solely 100% because of these tools. Yeah. Right? I don't understand how anybody could be pushing to ban them or like hate them as much as they do still to this point, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't see how they can't see that the dogs that are e-collar trained and reliable are able to experience so much more than their dogs are.
Yeah.
I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me, frankly.
No. I mean, even us last night, we took Bender with us over to our friend's, Jason's house, and
Yep.
I mean, we couldn't have done that if we didn't have control, because they have a cat and a little Pomeranian.
Yeah.
And if Bender's a cattle dog, and if I didn't have control over him, there's no way I could bring him places like that.
Yeah, 100%.
It adds so much quality of life for us and our dog together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
And I don't understand how anybody could be against that.
Yeah,
at all.
And not only against it, but so against it that they would like those tools to literally be illegal.
Exactly.
Illegal.
Yeah.
Like, go to jail if you're using them illegal.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
It's
All right.
ridiculous.
Well, this thing is still going. Fingers crossed.
Dude,
Knock on the fake wood.
I'm like stressing.
I'm stressing.
Every minute.
I'm just waiting for it to just go blank. All right. Training your puppy in basic obedience. There's no reason this same sort of program cannot be applied successfully to your relationship with your puppy. Though training is not easy, it is within the capabilities of owners who set their minds to it. You must combine behaviorally sound principles with actual training of your pup in regular practice, preferably both at home and at a weekly KPT class. I don't know what that is.
I don't either.
Which will foster important socialization skills. While it is true that the quality of puppy classes varies widely, from those that are simply socializing sessions with no real training to those run by dedicated professionals who not only socialize the dogs but help with preliminary obedience, in general, the positives far outweigh the negatives. If a more structured class is available in your area, we strongly recommend it. Usually courses begin at 12 to 16 weeks of age. In addition to following the guidelines described in this book, our methods coincide with many puppy programs, and the overall benefits are well worth it. Besides basic puppy obedience and valuable socializing experiences with other pups and people, a structured class will give you important feedback on how you are handling your pup. A professional can spot mistakes in the way you are training that you might not be aware of. Also, seeing other owners work with their pups and exchanging ideas and experiences are great ways to gain a proper perspective on your pup's behavior. It is good for morale. Mm-hmm. If a KPT class is not available in your area, you can carefully implement the program described in the following sections of your own. Begin working with your pups several times daily, no more than 10 minutes each session. Before you start, read through the exercises several times and mentally visualize them in sequence. You cannot train your pup with a leash in one hand and a book in the other. Imagine the session beforehand. Think about the brisk pace, the animated tone of your voice, the attention-getting checks on the leash, the sincere praise you will offer when your pup responds to you correctly. If you are not confident in how to proceed prior to the actual training session, you'll project indecision and awkwardness. Cues for the puppy to start acting unruly and unfocused, heightening your sense of frustration when you clearly understand what you are going to be doing beforehand and anticipate mistakes the pup might make as well as your responses to them. You'll communicate a greater sense of presence and leadership that will help to focus your pup. In the following sections, we assume that you have worked with your puppy for several weeks on the preliminary exercises described in chapters 11 and 14, and that your pup is now comfortable walking informally on a leash. The exercises that follow are intended for puppies between 3 to 5 months. They serve as a preliminary introduction to the training that we have described at length in How to Be Your Dog's Best Friend. I'm pretty sure KPT has to do with like the Keeler program of dog training, if I'm not mistaken, which is, again, a fairly old school representation of training.
Is that still around at all? Or?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that still use it. There are some die-hard Keeler method trainers out there, man. Because like it's one of those. Listen, this is what we talk about when we have trainers that have different styles of training. Everybody's program is created the way it is because it works to some extent, right? Like the Keeler method of dog training, right? It has been around forever, and it's been around forever because it works. Right?
Yeah.
If it didn't work, it wouldn't be around.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
The problem is it's a typically very dominant, brutal way of training, kind of. It's very heavy-handed, typically speaking.
Yeah.
And there's no room for adjustment or, like, error in things, right? So like if
Gotcha.
your dog is not responding well to it, or if your dog needs a gentler approach or this or that, it's going to work still with them, but you're going to create a very shut down dog through doing it, you know?
Okay.
So, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not my cup of tea.
It's just a
typically.
very heavy-handed approach.
Yeah. All right. We're going to get through a little bit more of this here. Training as an art. Good training involves more than simple obedience. The central issue in all puppy training should be how to teach the particular obedience skills in a way that brings out the best elements of the pup's personality. This is why training is an art. It is the process of drawing out your puppy, evoking behavior that will allow her to live peacefully with you. A puppy's knowledge of the 5 most basic commands, sit, stay, come, heel, and down, is no guarantee that the training process has been successful. A 6-month-old puppy may indeed be able to execute the commands in a training session. However, if she won't do them naturally in everyday life, how successful has training been? Or, let's say she does them, but in the process shakes fearfully and cowers, has her tail tucked under her ears flattened, and shows no animation or enthusiasm. At what price has the training come? Therefore, we can conclude that good training involves not only the precision of the dog's performance, but the attitude she displays in working. When a dog is animated and happy in her exercises, she also projects nobility, self-confidence, and sincere desire to please. This does not happen automatically. It is learned by experience. Despite what most people assume, dogs do not have an innate desire to please their owners. This popularized bit of wisdom is simply not true. Your dog has a natural desire to please herself, to receive pleasant sensations, and she is quite capable of learning how to bring those about. In the training process, she must be taught to associate pleasing you with something pleasant, with receiving praise and affection. This inspires her to work diligently for that reward. The reverse is also true. While a certain amount of proactive redirection of attention away from undesirable behaviors to desirable ones is entirely appropriate at the beginning of training, ultimately there will be occasions when your pup will challenge you, and a mild leash check will be very helpful in teaching focus, consistency, and respect. When your dog associates an action with something unpleasant or uncomfortable, she will try to avoid it. In puppy training, a minor leash correction with a simultaneously clipped, firm ah or no is just unpleasant enough to get her attention without harm. These are rhythms in all dog training, both for puppies and for older dogs. With puppies, the unpleasant sensations are kept deliberately at mild, non-stressful levels. When your pup does the right thing, praise her immediately in an encouraging, animated tone that is sincere. Properly timed praise is essential. Your pup needs to know that she has done what you want as soon as the behavior occurs, so that she can make the proper association between the two. Similarly, when a correction is necessary, it must be well timed. At the very moment of the infraction, an immediate check on the leash with a clipped no will get her attention, giving you the chance to repeat the command and then reinforce her compliance with praise. Remember, correction is not punishment. It is communication between you and your pup. It carries with it no anger. It is just unpleasant enough to help her change her behavior. Once that occurs, it is over, forgotten. In this work, you are the initiator, the leader, and as each day passes, you'll express your leadership by clearly and consistently applying the rhythm of praise and correction, letting your pup know what is and is not desired. This must become second nature to you. Having the right attitude may take an emotional adjustment on your part. To train effectively, you must learn to be flexible enough to redirect your pup's attention in the preliminary stages of training, as well as to be at ease with giving quick leash corrections later on, seeing them as helpful guidance and information to your pup. It is perfectly normal for your dog to make mistakes. Puppies learn by trial and error. Hence, mistakes are simply opportunities for them to learn. When your pup errs, you have a chance to show her what you are asking her to do. As long as your response is well timed, she will make the proper connection between the two. Then, as her behavior changes, your praise pleasantly reinforces her obedience. By repeatedly strengthening your pup's good behavior with praise and affection, while discouraging unwanted behavior with appropriate corrections, you can humanely teach the obedience exercises and gradually shape your pup's behavior to fit smoothly with your domestic requirements.
Information packed.
It's information packed. Training is an art. So this is a good point here because you start getting into a lot of this kind of stuff, and You start getting into everything being true and finding the balance between all of this, right? Because just like we talked about with puppy classes, you could teach sit, down, and stay and all of those different commands with treats all day long in a quiet room like this, but if you can't implement it in your day-to-day, it's useless. Everybody that calls me says they already know sit and down and this and that, so they probably don't need that much training. But the problem is that's just scratching the surface of training. It's such a small percentage of training already that they still need quite a bit.
It's technically like just parlor tricks at that point.
Exactly. And then you start getting into the concept of what we just talked about. When you get into some of these kind of old school styles of training that done incorrectly just create dogs that hate the process, right? And that's, not the goal either. And listen, I'm empathetic to like not every dog's going to love doing training. And there are some dogs, frankly, that have, like we talked about, a lot of the genetic issues that we'll see in dogs that will cause them to be very, very nervous or insecure throughout the training process to begin with, right? But over time, as they work through that kind of stuff, you understand the training has not created that insecurity. The dog was typically that way to begin with, right? Most dogs we'll see that we're working that have issues with shaking because they're nervous or look very scared, ears pinned back, all that kind of stuff. Typically speaking, they were all doing that to begin with before we even started training, right? So we need to get them to focus in first so that that stuff can then start to kind of drift away a little bit, right? Then you start getting into some of this other stuff of, the rhythm of training and correcting what you don't want, rewarding what you do want. I disagree with this, like a correction is not punishment. I mean, if you're giving a correction, you're punishing the act of not doing it. I think a lot of that gets into then fluff words that people will use to try to make it sound a little bit nice or a little bit more friendly. But I do agree with, like, a lot of people like try to avoid giving corrections, right? As opposed to looking at corrections as every correction you give is a learning opportunity. And if you skip it because you don't want to correct for things that you don't like to try to be nicer to the dog, you're missing all these learning opportunities. And you're actually going to create more confusion by not doing that, right? Clear predictability with our corrections and clear predictability with our rewards is essential to working through behavioral issues. And that's kind of how we work through a lot of this kind of stuff. See what we got here. Well, listen, we're going to end that on that. We wasted freaking 30 minutes getting this thing situated. So we just scratched the surface of that second chapter here. Next section of it is learning how to use the leash and the training collar and all that kind of stuff. So we'll get into that next time. Don't you guys worry. We've been burning through this book, though, man. We're like 220 pages into it already. So I know we're reading a lot of it, but listen, it's a dense one.
It is. I feel like we may have pressed our luck pretty much on that last little section.
Dude, I can't believe it's still recording right now, honestly. Listen, guys, we're going to have this fixed by next time, and we will be back to our typically scheduled long podcast. Not these like short little like under-hour ones. But
it's just been a mishmash a couple weeks, but we're back, and we'll get this fixed, and then we'll be back on our normal
Well, at least we're
schedule.
caught up. Listen, we are still not skipping a week.
We have not.
We are still on the right track here. So next week should be a nice, good one. We'll be back at it in our morning Thursday one. Again, anybody that has ideas, things they want to hear us talk about, different topics, stuff like that, shoot them over. Josh will have fun things for us to talk about next week, so look forward to that.
Oh, yeah.
But aside from that, we're getting there,
Yeah.
We're still doing the freaking thing.
We are doing the thing. I'm glad you guys are here and enjoying it with us.
That's it. All right, Doobie, any final notes?
No, just I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter. I was going to say when these were going to be released, but I mean, it'll already be released. It doesn't matter. So no, I'm good. Next Thursday.
That's it.
That's when we'll be recording again, which means everything will be back on their normal Monday schedules. Send us questions, send us concerns, comments.
Shoot them over.
Yeah, we tried to go over everything over here and be ready for the Josh Dobay podcast next Thursday, I guess.
The Doobie special.
The Doobie special.
All right, guys. Catch us at miraclecanintraining.com or David the Dog Trainer.
And Josh Dobay Productions, joshdobayproductions.com.